You have 7 minutes.
I want to welcome the Minister here today. I want to say that I support this legislation. I think it's important that the House of the Oireachtas should have a funding stream from the Central Fund, but that it should also be subject to ministerial accountability and control as well. And I think a happy balance can be struck between the two ideas. I want to inform the House that the Information Commissioner's Office has recently found that the Office of Public Works had unlawfully breached Section 15(4) of the Freedom of Information Act by refusing all efforts by independent members of the Seanad to have access to OPW plans to replace the Oireachtas Library reading room at Leinster House with a wholly unnecessary second chamber for the Dáil. The senators had sought details of the plans to spend €3.7 million reconfiguring the beautiful Oireachtas Library as a chamber for parallel sittings of Dáil Éireann. Not only would that project cost an extra €3.7 million as a capital expenditure, it would have added €1.6 million annually to the running costs of Dáil Éireann. Members became aware of this gross waste of public money when a slide presentation was made in private to a Dáil subcommittee. It was suggested that the Dáil could avoid late sittings if a second chamber was used. The same result could have been achieved by commencing Dáil sittings at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays or meeting on Monday afternoons or Friday mornings. In the meantime, the beautiful Oireachtas Library has been reduced to a tatty state with cheap furniture, and although it's a legally protected structure, its floorboards were removed and replaced by composite wooden panelling in preparation for the creation of a second chamber. Its historical light fittings have been replaced by cheaper fittings, and independent senators have drawn this to the attention of the Planning and Enforcement section of Dublin City Council, and an investigation has been commenced into the matter. We also polled the members of the Oireachtas and found that a clear majority were opposed to this change. It is a private project, really not supported by a majority of Oireachtas members. Now, the entire project, I do not believe will continue, but it was a scandalous waste of public money. An unlawful ugly interference with the protected structure, and a completely unnecessary division of Dáil Éireann into two parallel sittings in two chambers. And I do say, that people talk about the €300,000 bicycle shed expenditure, and that was an indication of where things could go wrong and went off the rails. But this is something which is in the pipeline. And it is a scandal that members of this House who sought from OPW, which is under the Minister's general control, details of what was being planned, were refused on 3 or 4 occasions with kind of evasive tactics any access to any records in relation to this project. But we do know that it would cost €3.7 million to wreck that library building further, and that it would cost €1.6 million every year to run a second chamber of the Dáil, not to mention the security implications of having the main hall of Leinster House so close to sessions of the Dáil where it would be difficult to provide adequate security. Now, I just want to say, in relation to all of this, we need value for money. And there have been a number of projects in these houses which I think have been a waste of money, such as the phone system, which the great majority of the staff do not want. A very expensive phone system was put in place, which they didn't want. We have advertising hoardings now inside this building, which are ugly and unnecessary, and which are bombarding us with information about security and all the rest of it. It's like being in an airport or something at this stage. These internal notice boards. And I just want to make one point. If we are serious about Leinster House continuing to be the Parliament it can be, one thing that the incoming government is going to have to face up to is the provision in the Constitution that there has to be one TD for every 20,000 to 30,000 people in the population. Because on population projections, we are going to have, by the year 2050, 250 members of Dáil Éireann. And if you were to apply our current standard of representation to Westminster, which is just for your information, there'll be about 2,300 members of the House of Commons. So if you want to do something to preserve this House and to conserve public expenditure on the parliamentary process, and I do believe the parliamentary process deserves generous support, run a referendum to say that the total number of TDs shall be, whatever figure you choose, 180 or 160 or whatever, divided among constituencies equally with the same ratio of people to TDs across the country. That would serve a much greater purpose. But I want to finish by saying this. The public got really outraged when they saw the 330,000 spent on a bicycle shed. And that was reasonable anger in the circumstances. It was a project which wasn't the subject of really careful scrutiny as to whether it was excessive in all the circumstances, and it could have been done far, far cheaper. Could have been. But this prospect of spending £3.5 million wrecking a service which most members of this House strongly value to provide a parallel Dáil chamber is a complete and scandalous waste of money. And the real thing is that a Dáil committee was persuaded that this was the only way to reduce working hours to not later than 8:30 in the evening, without considering, starting earlier on a Tuesday morning, or as in Westminster, doing private members' business on a Friday and a morning, and deferring the vote until the following Wednesday. None of this was considered, and the idea that you would spend 3.7 million on this project and an extra 1.6 million every year, just simply manning, if I can use that phrase in this day and age, manning the security and secretarial aspects of this parallel chamber structure to no particular effect, is a real example of wasteful public expenditure. So I'll finish on this point. I support your bill, Minister. I support multi-annual budgeting, and I also support the requirement that there be ministerial approval for what is spent within the envelope that you're providing from the central fund. But, and this is the important point, the members of the two houses here, the Seanad and the Dáil, are entitled to be consulted, and they're entitled to know what's being planned, and they are certainly not entitled to be deliberately obstructed by the Office of Public Works to the point where the Information Commissioner had to intervene and overturn the refusal to provide adequate plans to members of this House. Thank you.
Senator Gavin.
Senator McDougall, I really thank you for bringing up the Oireachtas Library. I used to begin and end my day in the library. I love libraries. I am very proud of the fact that this is a country that's opening up libraries, beautiful libraries. I'm very proud of the fact that there's nobody in this country taking any books off the shelves of libraries. The very serious point you make regarding the future of the library and the building, the room within which it's in, I will definitely take on board, absolutely. Because I believe that libraries are cradles of decency, of learning, and the resources that they offer to members of the Oireachtas, I think, are exemplary. And I think they do great work, and you have raised some important issues there that I will be following up on in relation to the use of that room and the library facilities that are there.